Hi guys, so I thought we would talk about repertoire for competitions. Some of you guys might be thinking about doing them this year, may just not know, and it's what I wanted to talk about today, so there. Um, it's kind of a difficult thing because there's so many variables, but obviously the first place to start is what are the requirements of the specific competition? Most of the time it's going to be a concerto from memory, and then a couple other pieces. It really depends on the competition. The one I did when I was in undergrad was a concerto from memory and then another piece from memory. It changed based on the round you were in as well. So make sure you have a piece that fits the requirements, or pieces that fit the requirements. Because if you don't, that's already a problem. And also make sure that you're actually fulfilling the requirements. If you have to do a full concerto, make sure you have a full concerto. I know someone who almost was disqualified because they thought they only had to do 2 movements of a concerto when it was actually the full one. They ended up not, but, it's a scary moment and it's not something you ever want. So, look up the requirements. Once you've done that, it's a matter of finding the rep. For me, it's always about difference and having contrast. You don't want an all-French program, though if that's part of the requirement, then that's a different story. But for me, I like having something from every style represented, if that's possible. Same as planning a recital. But that's competition repertoire is a little bit less restricted in that sense. They don't necessarily have to flow with each other, but it's nice if they do, because chances are the judges are going to hear them back to back, and if they make no sense together, it might throw them off, quite honestly. For me, personally, I tend to play repertoire in competitions that I've learned before, that I've performed before, that I've studied before, that I've worked on before. Some people don't like doing that because it feels like you're rehashing things and things like that, but honestly, it gives me the best performances and it gives me the best results. So, there's something to be said for bringing back pieces. That being said, I try not to bring back pieces from high school. I try to bring them back from undergrad or even a year before. It really depends on the situation. I find that bringing back older repertoire means that I've performed it before, I've put in some of the work, so it's easier to bring back, especially if you're trying to do something in a short amount of time. And it just works better. One of the things that I talk about all the time here and also on my Tumblr is practice, and practicing high-pressure situations, practicing performances, practicing getting nervous, practicing memorization. So if you have to play a concerto from memory, it's way easier to play one from memory that you've performed from memory before than it is to learn and then memorize something. That being said, maybe you want to give yourself a challenge and start something new. Personally, I'm going for results and I'm going for the best performance I can. And I'd rather spend 2 years and do something really properly than to rush it and maybe not do super well or not play super well. That's my own personal thing. If you want to do something other than that, feel free. And I think it's also important to think about the situation you're programming this music for. It's a competition, so that means you're gonna have to show off. While you may be able to play the super, super hard rep, can you do it effectively? Is something a little easier that's still just as showy going to translate better? I've heard people really crash and burn because they played pieces that were just too hard for them, and they were fantastic performers. They were people who could have easily won whatever competition it was. They just overcommitted. And it's also something to think about. You're usually working on other things while you're preparing for a competition. You might have, if you're in school, you might have your own performances, you might have your juries to deal with, your recitals to deal with, your studio repertoire, your ensemble repertoire, your chamber groups to deal with. Like, there's so many things going on, and you might not have the time to devote to a competition. So, is it worth entering that year? Will you have the time? And if you do have the time, is it worth putting in all that effort to learn a new piece? There's a lot of things you have to weigh, and there's a point where competitions are kind of hard. They're hard to win. It's all about how you play on the day, and they don't really tell you anything in the end because it's all about how you play on the day. What is really nice is you can gain financial support from them, and sometimes instruments, and sometimes just notoriety and reviews. I actually gained the entirety of my funding for my alto flute through competitions. I saved, and at the end of my cycle through this competition in Canada, I was able to buy my alto flute. So that's something that I couldn't have done by myself at that time, and it's been really beneficial for me in the future now because I have this instrument. So there's also a financial benefit to competitions. And also, one last thing before I wrap this up. Placing first isn't always the biggest deal. I actually didn't win the competition I entered in Canada. I won the earlier rounds, but in the national round I placed second. But it's still been a really great boost to, one, my confidence, and two, my career. So don't feel too bad if you don't win. It's not a big deal, and there's hundreds of really successful musicians who didn't ever win a major competition or placed second their entire career. I hope this is somewhat helpful, and if any of you guys are in Madison, Wisconsin this weekend, I am playing along with my roommate and duo partner at the Madison New Music Festival. We are playing at the Contemporary Art Museum at 7:30, and we'd love to have some people out there. It's a free concert, and it's going to be really cool. There's a lot of really amazing musicians along with us performing contemporary music of Wisconsin composers and also non-Wisconsin contemporary composers. So it's going to be a really great night, and we'd love to see you guys there. And as always, if you guys have video ideas, let me know, and I will see you guys next week.